Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 50 Latino Vida Latino Spirit online magazine, without a doubt the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and certainly the people's choice and the people's voice. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Happy June to you all. As always, we have a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just preface this by saying that this segment's going to rub some people the wrong way, and that's all right. I mean, I like doing that for a living. But it's important to put into context exactly what I'm objecting to. So let me start off by saying that, listen, I understand that there are plenty of reasons to dislike Fernando Uribe, but one reason that I will never, ever have to endure is being disliked because I am a heterosexual male. So, of course, being a straight male will never get me the vitriol and scorn that obviously some in the LGBTQ community receive. Obviously, we know being a straight male will garner you certain advantages and, again, certain favoritism over, let's say, a gay male. And that's not being heinous, that's not being derogatory, that's just the truth. So certainly I can support men and women in the LGBTQ community. Certainly they do not deserve to be marginalized. They do not deserve to be discriminated against or victimized in any way. Let me put that out there, because it seems like that message gets lost whenever I talk about the alphabet mob. But unfortunately, folks, in New Jersey and even nationally, yes, we are celebrating Pride Month in all 50 states, and certainly in certain parts of the world, not in the Middle East. Obviously, as we all know, you can't celebrate Pride Month there for the obvious reasons. But here, folks, the problem with Pride Month is that, unfortunately, it's become extremely commercialized, and it's also just become virtue signaling on steroids. And without a doubt, we have many willing accomplices here in the United States, whether it's academia, Hollywood elites, certainly the liberal media. But by and large, folks, the alphabet mob has found a way to curtail their message to where, hey, listen, if you don't support us and you don't show what we think is a sufficient amount of, affirmation for Pride Month and for our community, then guess what? You're going to be vilified. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's just not true. And number two, it's not a good strategy, I think, by those that have the loudest of voices within the alphabet mob community. Let me just start off by saying that, again, and here's a statement that I've mentioned on other programs, and I think it's important to mention here as well. So I'll sort of just share a brief monologue and a letter addressed to the LGBTQ community. So it goes like this. Dear members of the LGBTQ community, if you don't want to be treated differently for being gay or whatever else, then stop acting like being LGBTQ somehow makes you special. Your sexual orientation is neither an achievement nor a holiday. You have not accomplished anything by simply being attracted to one sex or another. And that's true, okay? And unfortunately, I think that many in the LGBTQ community struggle with someone saying that out loud. And of course, the low-hanging fruit is to say, oh, well, you know what? That person's a bigot. That person's a homophobe. That person's a transphobe. Newsflash, I'm none of those things. But what I'm not also going to acquiesce to is a lot of the lunacy that surrounds Pride Month. Right? So let me just go a little bit further here, because I think it's an important distinction that we have to make, because, folks, I'm the only journalist in New Jersey that's talking about this. Okay? It's not anybody at NJ Spotlight News, the New Jersey Monitor, Political NJ, the Bergen Record, the Star Ledger, NJ.com, wherever. Take your pick, folks. NorthJersey.com, okay? And especially Insider NJ. Okay, but these are sort of the statewide news sites, and I do use that word loosely, news, because they're propaganda sites, but also on the national level. But I think it's important to sort of bring the following to the attention of those in the LGBT community. Because let's be honest, folks, they're the most privileged minority in the history of the United States. They just are. Okay? Every institution continues to go out of their way to honor and celebrate them. Laws are altered to cater to their emotions, and ultimately society is rearranged to validate and affirm them. That's not what Pride Month is about. You can be about civil rights and making sure that people don't get marginalized. That's one thing, and that's important. But that's not what Pride Month and everything else within the alphabet mob nation encompasses now. It's all about affirmation and sort of absolute obedience. right? Yet many still say they're oppressed. Now, what the alphabet mob has done, ladies and gentlemen, okay, with the enabling by the American left, institutions such as the Hollywood elites, the liberal media, and of course academia, is what they've done ultimately is create a privileged class, which has nothing to do with equity. It just doesn't, okay? It's now better ultimately to be a member of the LGBTQ plus minus whatever. I mean, it almost looks like an eye chart. I feel like I'm going to Dr. Brownstein in North Bergen for my annual eye check, and that's what the acronym looks like now. It's become quite insufferable, right? But it's now better to be a part of that community than, for example, to be a veteran in the United States. And you ask why, Fernando? Very simply, you'll get senior political positions, nonprofit money, and if anyone dares to disagree with you, well, guess what? You get to cry hate crime, which is what many on the left do and many within the alphabet mob do when you're not acquiescing and pledging total allegiance and obedience to them. And of course, when we talk about virtue signaling and who does it better than anybody on behalf of the LGBTQ community in New Jersey, yes, folks, it's Jay Lassiter with Insider NJ. Now, of course, you can check out his latest propaganda piece on that propaganda website called Straight But Not Narrow Volume 4. And of course, what he does, obviously, is he preps us all for the inevitable reality that by the end of the month, he'll have his annual power list, right? LGBTQ power list, sponsored by Insider NJ, right? Where we're honoring, I guess, gay New Jerseyans, bi New Jerseyans, which is just, as far as I'm concerned, just an excuse just to, I don't know, have it both ways because I don't know too many bisexual people that, you're either one or the other. This sort of dipping the toe in and out of the water just seems like, I don't know, you're trying to relive your college years well into adulthood, right? But of course, going into the article itself, Jay Lasser will sit there and try to, mention names of individuals who have been, I would say, I guess, champions or crusaders of the community when it comes to sticking up for LGBTQ people, right? So, for example, like when I look at that, I'll sort of look at why it's so interesting that he mentions, certain individuals within the state of New Jersey, right? Certain legislators, other activists. But this is what's really, really funny for me. Because as I read this, I said to myself, oh, for the love of God, why are we even delving into this? And when I looked at this, I just said, here's Jay looking to, as usual, want to propagate, again, as I mentioned, people within his line of thinking, and I get it. There are plenty of people in the state of New Jersey that will, acquiesce to Jay and will sit there and ultimately be this sort of ally, but they're doing nothing more but pandering. So, for example, you mentioned State Senator Andrew Zwicker, right? As far as Andrew Zwicker voicing his disapproval for certain books being banned. This is the same clown in the New Jersey State Senate that felt it was a good idea to ban plastic bags, right? How's that cluttering your car working out, folks? And has it done anything whatsoever to help the environment as Dandy Andy would like you to believe? Of course not. But, when it comes to intellectually bankrupt policy decisions, you can always rely on Andrew Zwicker, right? And of course, why not virtue signal? Who else? State Senator Teresa Ruiz, another virtue signaling woman in New Jersey politics who, hey, if there isn't a camera somewhere nearby and she can't pander or virtue signal, then Teresa Ruiz isn't doing her job because that's all she lives for. Whether it's being an apologist for LGBTQ curriculums in our public schools, for denouncing, let's say, conservatives who are raising legitimate concerns about what material our kids are exposed to in our public schools, right? It's no coincidence that both her and Zwicker went on CNN, right? All of 7 people watched that segment in the morning, watching them virtue signal like they love to do. And of course, there's the rest of the lollipop guild here in the column itself. Anjali Malhotra, another insufferable woman, former president of the New Jersey chapter of the National Organization for Women. And the list goes on and on here. I'm not going to read you this entire list because I don't want to put you to sleep. But the point is, folks, that whenever it comes time for virtue signaling when it comes to Pride Month and, crying about victimhood and how oppressed he is. You can always rely on Jay Lasher to do that, especially during this month. But what I find most egregious is that what Jay won't tell you, okay? And certainly I'll be sharing some photos here of really things that I can post on here that are permissible. Again, this is a family-friendly show, all right? But we all know what happens at Pride events, okay? So this nonsense about family-friendly Pride events is exactly that, folks. It's nonsense. It's just not true, okay? All it takes is a simple Google search, and if you're somewhat cognitively, coherent, you know exactly the photos and the behaviors that you will see during Pride events. We saw it on the White House lawn this past weekend. We've seen it at Pride events. Again, you can see there, mothers holding children as young as 2 or 3 years old, watching just abysmal behavior, or children being pushed across in their strollers. How exactly is this promoting? See, again, folks, this is where the alphabet Bob wants to get you, and this is where they lose people like me. Yes, the libertarian in me will say, hey, live and let live, love who you want to love, that's fine. I'm not going to bother you, don't bother me. Okay, I'm not flaunting my straightness in front of anybody. Don't flaunt your gayness in front of me. That's it. I think it's a very simple premise to live on. But the idea that somehow these Pride events have turned into complete degradation, and somehow, I don't know, maybe, it's okay for kids to see grown men with dog masks on, being submissive, being led around on a leash by a transvestite or a transgendered person. Like, how is that exactly healthy for a developing brain of a child, right? But Jay Lasser won't tell you that, because Jay Lasser would rather paint people like me and other conservatives hateful and intolerant and bigoted. No, we're none of those things, Jay. Well, we are concerned. So whether it's the parents in the Roxbury School District up in Sussex County or other school districts around the state of New Jersey, parents have a right to complain. Again, they're taxpayers. They're homeowners. Okay, their property taxes pay how those school district budgets are compiled. Now, again, it may not mean much to you. Again, you're sitting at home, living off your husband's income, smoking weed all day, so it doesn't really affect you per se. But for parents, working parents, people who pay property taxes, those things, Jay, that you don't do, yeah, unfortunately, they have a right to complain. And if they're going to do that, whether it be in the Roxbury School District or anywhere else, guess what? They have a right to do that. It doesn't make them bigoted. It doesn't make them homophobes. It doesn't make them transphobes. It doesn't make them intolerant. It makes them regular people. Because here in New Jersey, again, during this election season and for future election cycles, again, folks, it's not about pronouns. It's about property taxes. It's about kitchen table issues, not virtue signaling and seeing, how gay we can be. Or the idea that, you know what? Let's look at the President of the United States and what a wonderful job he's done. Why? Because there's a lesbian in every other cabinet position, or there's a gay man being appointed to every other cabinet position. Like, is that how we're looking at efficiency? In an economy where we're still suffering from inflation, high food prices, high fuel prices. But again, to people like Jay Lasser and members of the alphabet mob, hey, as long as you get to see a lesbian working in government, that's what really matters. Well, no, Jay, it doesn't. And unfortunately to you and the rest of the Lollipop Guild and the Peanut Gallery that enable you, and we all know who they are, folks. I mean, again, if you look at, his social media, it's a bunch of the same old tired ass men and women who enable him and prop him up and just endorse this nonsensical behavior by Jay Lasser. But what do you expect, folks? Again, whether it's Jay Lasser, Insider NJ, or all the other aforementioned news sites, they love to virtue signal, and they love to do it, especially during Pride Month. Oh, and by the way, Jay, for someone who doesn't like conservatives and doesn't like conservative governors, you sure as hell spend a lot of time in the state of Florida. Isn't the state of Florida so badly run by Governor DeSantis, right? Isn't it so anti-LGBTQ? Yeah, you seem to spend a lot of time in Florida. Talking out of both sides of your mouth? Well, what else is new? That's Jay Lasseter, and that's Insider NJ. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. And now for some local stories for your consideration. Let's head down to the south side of Jersey City, and a special thank you to Mark Kusow with the Jersey Journal for his reporting on this very important story. Certainly, State Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro, as she'll be finishing up her term later on this November. Certainly she has not been retained within her legislative district, but she's still looking to make some noise and make a difference in the few remaining months she has working in the state legislature. Now, apparently, a $25 million lifeline is being proposed by the Assemblywoman, but certainly fiscal oversight is very important. Now, again, according to the article, as New Jersey legislators barrel towards a state budget deadline by the end of this month, which again is required under state law, if a budget is not signed by 11:59 p.m. on June the 30th, then the state will shut down effectively at 12:01 on July the 1st. We've seen that happen potentially in the last 20 years, in 2006 under Governor Corzine, and in 2017 under Governor Chris Christie. But one Hudson County Assemblywoman is hoping for an opportunity to give the embattled New Jersey City University a financial lifeline. Now, State Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro says she will sponsor a budget resolution to carve out $25 million in state aid for the university, which would be spread out over 3 years, but would also come with fiscal monitoring requirements. The proposal was first reported by John Hines and the Hudson County View. Now, Assemblywoman Chaparro said, quote, "I think this is something that would help them tremendously. It's really about the students and their families. It's just not fair to them." Now, the university has been in a financial emergency for nearly a year, prompting it to execute layoffs and elimination of academic and sports programs in an effort to reduce its initial $22 million deficit to $10 million, and has lobbied for more state funding than the $27.9 million that's allocated in the current state proposed budget. State Senator Brian Stack is also reportedly planning to ask the NJCU to receive an additional $10 million from the state budget, although it cannot be determined if his request would be in addition to Chaparro's request. Now, NJCU's troubles stem from overspending, under-recruiting, and an aggressive plan to expand its real estate ventures and decline enrollment, according to a report released by the Office of the State Comptroller in Trenton. Now, NJCU spokesperson Ira Thor said that the proposed funding would help the school stabilize its operating budget and cash reserves and allow the university to realize long-term deficit reduction savings in real time while investing in student success and historical and transformative accountability initiatives that have already been set in motion. Folks, I have to tell you, I'd rather let NJCU go under. And I'm sorry, I don't care. When it comes to colleges, universities, as someone working in academia, I understand full well. Listen, it's feast or famine. You have to find a way to survive. And NJCU has done this to itself. Okay? Once again, folks, overspending, overhiring, and we've seen it all the time. Right? One of the biggest things in state college and university, folks, is this sort of fixation on diversity, inclusion, and equity. Right? We've seen departments created, multiple deans hired for something that, quite frankly, isn't necessary. Okay? A dean of students can handle whatever issues involving diversity, inclusion, and tolerance, or whatever other nonsense that social justice clowns love to sort of pontificate about. Yeah, that's fine. Guess what? A dean of students can do that. We don't need a dean of diversity or a dean of inclusion or a dean of equity. It's these type of hires that NJCU has become famous for. Okay? Now, of course, as far as under recruiting, well, it's hard. Who wants to commute all the way to the south side of Jersey City? Parking sucks. The neighborhood around it sucks. And no offense, again, and I know I might sound like an elitist Rutgers University snob graduate. I get it. I get that all the time. You know, but again, as being a proud graduate from Rutgers, New Brunswick, and also Rutgers, Newark, two of the better institutions, not just in the state, but in the country, I get it. But folks, we have to be responsible with the state budget. It keeps growing and growing and growing. It doesn't need to. I'm sorry for any NJCU graduates. I understand it might be a bitter pill for you to swallow, but folks, there's better resources we can allocate money to, and other programs for veterans, for seniors, for victims of domestic violence, to improve child services. Those are things, folks, that I would prefer $25 million go to. Now, I understand that Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro and her heart's in the right place, no doubt. And I think infinitely of Assemblywoman Annette Chaparro. She's been a great legislator. Have always agreed with some of her voting practices, but that's a topic for another day. But she's just a sensational legislator, a hardworking mom, and an overall great person. So I don't have a bad thing to say about Annette Chaparro. And I understand this is a good intent here as you're winding down in your days in that office as a state assemblywoman. But what I would argue, folks, is, hey, NJCU, sorry. You know what? If it needs to go under, it should go under. I'm sorry. I'd rather have that $25 million go to something much more fulfilling. And I understand that, you know, for graduates and alumnus, hey, again, it's not easy to hear these things. But folks, I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm here to coddle you. I'm here to caress you and make you feel better. I'm here to tell you the truth, folks. And the truth is, if NJCU needs to go under, it should, because those millions of dollars can be better spent somewhere else. And I'm sorry, NJCU did it to itself. It shouldn't be able to, somehow recover at the expense of taxpayers. So that's a big no for me, and I'm hoping that legislators in Trenton will do the same. Staying in Jersey City and also, of course, incorporating Hoboken, folks, County Commissioner Anthony Romano survived a near disaster on primary day, and once again, a special thank you to Aaron Murrill, the editor of the Jersey City Times, for his reporting on this story. Now, ultimately, last Tuesday during primary season, the Hudson County Democratic Organization survived basically with a lot of their key endorsements and key candidates. Of course, County Executive candidate Craig Guy cruised to a victory, as well as all state Senate candidates on the ballot as well, which included State Senator Brian Stack out of the new 33rd Legislative District, certainly State Senator now basically elect Angela McKnight in the 31st Legislative District, and of course in the new 32nd District, Raj Mukherjee. Certainly their running mates also won convincingly, but some county commissioner races were not as runaway as you would think. And of course, obviously, with getting deep pockets and key endorsements, the HCDO was able to avert certain disaster in specific races. Now, one race that was very interesting, though, was between Ron Batista and the current incumbent, Anthony Romano. Now, listen, I think highly of Anthony. He's a fellow member of Cowboys Nation and certainly a very good public servant. But Ron Batista, without a doubt, folks, was running a certain type of campaign. He has some name recognition. Let's not deny that. But I would also say that he was trying to run a very progressive type of campaign in Hoboken, in the Jersey City Heights, and also in downtown. But this is what's interesting, though, folks, because, and I've said this all the time and with recent guests I've talked to, where I think progressives, whether it's the progressive Democrats of Hudson County or the progressive Democrats of New Jersey, they need to cater their message or fine-tune a little bit, because they think that being, the AOC in Hudson County is going to win over voters. That's just not the case. All right? Here in Hudson County, it's as blue as Windex, okay? It's solidly Democrat, all right? But it's more about being blue-collar, working-class Democrats and a lot of moderate Democrats. The idea about subscribing to woke nonsense or, reminding us that some adults in the Democratic Party, especially in the far-left progressive wing, never passed a high school biology course and still can't even answer the question of what is a woman, right? Or who can get pregnant, for God's sakes. Or other ideas about economics which just make no practical sense, or even fiscal sense as well. Yeah, those are the type of progressives I think that don't really do well in Hudson County. That act plays over there in Queens because people are just idiots and they'll vote for, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over there just blindly. But here in Hudson County, folks, Democrats, to their credit, a lot more critical thinking than you would think. And of course, when we sort of look at candidates like Ron Batista, who again is not crazy left, but certainly someone who subscribes to that the wokeness and all the other nonsense that, listen, folks, we all know who they are: the social justice clowns, the climate hysterics, the woke fools, the race hustlers, right? The pronoun patrol. We all know who they are, right? So without a doubt, obviously Ron Batista cut it pretty close there, and he gave Anthony Romano quite the scare on election. I remember contacting my good friend, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, David Wildstein, and asking, hey, what's going on here? Is Romano going to survive? And sure enough, he did late into the night. But folks, you had to sweat that one out, though, if you were Anthony Romano. I think it's a reminder that, again, at any time, the clock could be ticking for all of us politically. And I think in this case, Anthony Romano avoided a disaster. And I'm sure that he'll take that with him as he goes into the election season in November and serves another term as county commissioner in Jersey City. Lastly, folks, let's finish with the mile square city of Hoboken. And you'll be delighted to learn that yours truly will be participating in the 2023 Frank Sinatra Sing-Off in downtown Hoboken at Sinatra Park, coming up on Thursday night, June the 22nd at 6:30 p.m. As you can see the flyer there, obviously with all the pertinent information. I do want to thank the Division of Cultural Affairs for the City of Hoboken, obviously Jerry Fallow, for selecting me to this competition. And folks, I have to tell you, from what I've learned, there was quite a large amount of competition of those who applied, who submitted videos, auditioned basically online to get into this contest. And I'm fortunate enough to be one of the contestants this year. For those of you that know me and follow me on social media, of course, you know I am a dedicated karaoke aficionado, having worked as a karaoke host for many, many years in New York City during my years in grad school and subsequently thereafter. I love karaoke, I love singing, but more importantly, folks, I love singing Frank Sinatra songs, whether it was growing up listening to it with my grandfather, the devotion my father has to Frank Sinatra. Folks, you know what? Oh Blue Eyes occupies a tremendous place in all of our hearts. And for those of us that are born in Hudson County, and even more so that are born in Hoboken, the birthplace of Frank Sinatra, you know what Frank Sinatra means to the Mile Square City. So once again, folks, coming up on Thursday night, June the 22nd at 6:30 p.m., yes, Fernando Uribe will be joining 9 other contestants in the 2023 Frank Sinatra Sing-Off downtown in Sinatra Park, of course, weather permitting. Now, folks, again, if you go on YouTube and check out previous competitions over the years, it's quite lively, it's very competitive, and without a doubt, folks, I have my work cut out for me, but I feel good. And for those of you, again, who follow me on social media, listen, I don't have a bad voice. Yes, I'm fine-tuning a little bit. I'll be practicing leading up to Thursday night, June the 22nd, but trust me, folks, I'm in it to win it. I'm in it to represent, and of course, Frank Sinatra, for me, lives forever in my heart because of just his music, what it means, the messages he always conveyed in all of his songs, and quite frankly, folks, what an inspiring figure that he was. So coming up, once again, on Thursday night, June the 22nd, I'm inviting all of you to come out and cheer me on at the 2023 Frank Sinatra Sing-Off in downtown Hoboken, folks. Once again, parking is available nearby in Sinatra Park. We'll be singing right in front of the most beautiful skyline anywhere in the world, folks, right there in downtown, overlooking New York City. Hopefully, weather permitting, it won't be too hot. Hopefully, it won't rain. But more importantly, folks, I'm in there to have a good time, to help raise awareness, and to help compete. And, you know, hey, maybe I'll get lucky and win that after all. So we'll see. Again, folks, coming up on Thursday night, June the 22nd, come cheer me on in the 2023 Frank Sinatra Sing-Off in Sinatra Park in downtown Hoboken. And that's our show for this week. Once again, to check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to subscribe to the Hudson Media Group on YouTube, and of course, like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Don't forget to like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe on Facebook, as well as following it on Instagram at Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe. Of course, don't forget my own Instagram and Twitter. It's at the Fernando Zone. And of course, make sure you follow me on Facebook as well. Folks, a lot of good things to keep talking about during this election season, and we'll keep doing it here with the Hudson Media Group. Once again, I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 50 Latino, via the Latino Spirit online magazine, certainly the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, and without a doubt, the people's choice and the people's voice. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Folks, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Love you all, especially my own father, my own uncle here living in Hudson County, as well as all the dads out in my families out in Colombia and Spain, and to all the fathers out there. Enjoy Father's Day weekend. Please party responsibly. Enjoy the time with family and your kids, relatives, loved ones. Enjoy it, folks. Hey, our fathers, they mean something to all of us. Once again, folks, I am Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'll see you next week here on Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe.